Veronica, tu vedi bene la... Mi senti bene?
Ah, sì,
Ok,
sì, si vede bene, si sente bene.
ok,
E
ottimo.
sa che sta già registrando, forse lo metto in pausa, va bene?
Sì. Media project, and thank you very much for joining. For those that I haven't met yet, my name is Dana Salpina and I'm postdoc at CMCC. I will be today moderating the webinar. So also for those who weren't with us during the first webinar, I would like to highlight that the objective of this webinar is to create a sort of platform for you in order to exchange your experience regarding the use of nature-based solution. And it's also a very good opportunity to discuss and also learn collectively. So before to give a floor to Vladislav, I would like to make a brief introductory note. So this webinar will be registered for the dissemination purposes. And if you don't agree, and so the video registration will be also shared with other Arcadia colleagues who couldn't join the webinar. So if you don't agree, please let us know. Otherwise, you can also opt out, or you can turn off your camera if you don't want to appear in the video registration. So we had a last minute changes since Ekaterina couldn't join us. Instead of Ekaterina, there will be Vladislav who will be presenting today. So Vladislav, I would ask you to present yourself. He will be today presenting regarding the use of nature-based solutions for water management in Bulgaria, specifically in Aegean River Basin Management District, focusing on current challenges, examples of responses, and directions for implementation of adaptation strategies in water management in a Plovdiv region. So, Vladislav, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dana, for this introduction. I have to tell you, first of all, that we're very happy and very pleased to present the situation in Bulgaria and in particular this East Aegean River Basin Management District, which includes Plovdiv region, which is our target region. Now, first of all, first few words about Ekaterina Valcheva. The short name is Katya, which I know that in Italy you also have Katya. So Katya has been working already for probably about, I don't know, probably 15, if not more years on water management and water issues, water quality. Her PhD was inspired by my return from Australia, where I was working on buffer strips and filter strips for farmers. Actually, these are nature-based solutions. Back 20 years ago, I was researching them in Australia in order to improve the situation and at landscape and catchment level, because Australia and United States still, for instance, I'll give you an example. They apply certain pesticides and fertilizers that are forbidden in Europe since year 2000, you can imagine. So these nature-based solutions such as buffer strips and filter strips, green strips, alongside water resources like rivers or dams or lakes are one of the best instruments to preserve the water quality. So Katya was inspired to do her PhD, and after that she became one of our experts at Agriculture University of Plovdiv. She is working not only with the Water Basin Directorate in Plovdiv, which is responsible for the management of East Aegean River Basin in this area. But also she's working with the Ministry of Environment and Waters, Bulgarian Ministry of Environment and Waters, about the Water Framework Directive, Nitrate Directive, etc. So naturally, we have chosen this topic because already for 20 years we experience an impact from climate change on our rivers and water reserves in Bulgaria. And especially in the last, let's say, 10 to 15 years, we had this kind of changing weather and especially these extreme events of flooding, but in the same time, could be 2 or 3 or 4 years of drought. So you can imagine that water is very important, not only for our farmers, but also for our nature, for our biodiversity, for preserving our biodiversity. You have to know that Bulgaria is in the top 3 in the European Union countries of Natura 2000 sites. We have designated 33% of the territory of Bulgaria, even 34% under Natura 2002 directives, European directives. So you can imagine how important is the water management also for this reason. Next slide, please. Now, you can see that, as I mentioned, Bulgaria is located in such corner of Europe that is very important. It's kind of transition area between the continental climate and the subtropical climate. So now we have been actually warned 25 years ago by Bulgarian Academy of Science that it will happen. The present changes, climate changes will happen. And even the territories of semi-mountain areas, I'm not talking about mountain areas, they are not so much impacted by climate change, but semi-mountain areas will be even appropriate for grain cropping, which was not possible, let's say, 25 years ago. So we experience changes, and very often most of them are related to droughts and floods. The policy of given the global nature of the processes related to climate change, Bulgaria's policy in the field is determined on the one hand of the international commitments. We are complying with these international commitments, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change and Kyoto Protocol, Paris Agreement, but also by the European legislation in this field. Next one probably will give you, yeah, these are on the picture you can see the deviations in average air temperatures compared to climatic conditions, and you can see how hot it is becoming in the last let's say years compared to the previous years. So the temperatures are rising and rising every year. Next, please. Overall, the climate change will have a greater impact in large cities. More vulnerable to extreme climate events will be central urban areas with high density, heavy traffic, reduced green and open spaces, etc. But also affect significantly more. This is the social component of the climate change. More vulnerable groups, including those living below the poverty line, in poor standard housing, the homeless, the elderly, and the sick, and it's especially pronounced not only in the urban areas, but also in rural areas, where there is a distinctive migration from rural to urban areas because of these climate changes, by the way. Yesterday, I gave an example with another presentation. We had another presentation yesterday, and I gave this example in 2016. In Bulgaria, there were 163,000 farmers. Now, last year in 2023, there were 73,000 registered farmers. So you can imagine that 50–60% of the farmers went out, they sold their land, but the land remains the same. I mean, the volume of the land, meaning that especially young farmers are migrating from these areas. And also, one of the biggest factors are climate changes, climate impacts. Next, please. Now, this presentation will concern the best practices and examples. You can see a lot of text and sources, by the way, also displayed in the presentation, but it is on purpose because after that you will have more time to read this presentation and have references if you wish to do so. But this is also to generate discussion about the water management and the importance of water in the next years. Next, please. Now, I'm just giving you here, we are giving example with nature-based solutions for water that are determined by United Nations, right? by FAO and the United Nations, and not all of them, this is just a kind of condition that I'm explaining right now in the beginning, that not all of them are applied in our Plovdiv region and the whole South Bulgarian region, river basin, but we're trying to, and I'll give you examples. There will be examples of what type of nature-based solutions for water management we are applying in our region. Next, please. Now, main water management principles are defined by the Water Framework Directive, transposed to the Water Act, introduced river basin-based water management in Bulgaria by delineating water bodies as the main unit in the water management process. Also, we have river basin water management plans as a tool for integrated water management, which plan, in the next slides, you'll understand why the government is asking each of these four major water basin directorates to have these water management plans, because it sets specific objectives for achieving good water status and protection of waters and water-dependent ecosystems, as well as promoting their sustainable use. Now, climate change, of course, regarding the floods and droughts, I said that these two extremes have the most impact on our waters. Is taken into account in the preparation of the river basin plans. The planning process requires integration and coordination of adopted national and local policies and plans, and their environmental, economic, and social aspects. I'll give you an example, because in the Plovdiv region and the region of South Bulgaria was in the past and still now one of the most agriculture productive areas in terms of vegetables, fruits, grain cropping, etc., etc. So this is also one of the major factors, because in the cases of droughts, all these water basins are used, like artificial dams or lakes are used for irrigation purposes. So therefore, it is important to manage them appropriately. Next, please. The water management in Bulgaria is carried out by the national at the national level by the National Assembly, the Council of Ministers, and the Minister of Environment and Water, assisted by the established Supreme Advisory Council of Water. And in order to integrate water policy and sectoral policies in the water sector, a coordination council of water has been established, which comprises representatives of 10 ministries and the National Association of Municipalities in the Republic of Bulgaria. And the most important is the last paragraph, that water management at river basin level is carried out by the basin directorates, so-called water basin directorates, assisted by basin councils. You can see them in the next slide, please. Yep, this one. You can see that we have 4 such water basin directorates, and the central one, which is called East Aegean River Basin District, actually comprises Plovdiv region, but also a few other regions on the left and right and south, because this actually eases the management of all these water basins. Actually, you have to know, you saw on the first or second slide that Bulgaria is administratively distributed at 28 districts, 28 regions. So in the East Aegean River Basin, there's 4 or 5 districts or regions belonging. One of them is on the west, on the north is Danube district headquarters in Plovdiv, the Black Sea district on the east, and on the south it is East Aegean district with headquarters in Plovdiv, and west in headquarters in Vladislav. Next, please. River basin model, I mean, the river basin plans are actually based on these river basin models, management model. And you see that the components, the major components of this model are drivers, pressures, status, impact, and responses. So each of these river basin plans that is designed and adopted and approved by the government based on suggestion of the water basin directorates, these 4 water basin directorates, is based on these river basin management models, which is according to the EU Water Framework Directive. Next, please. Now, regarding the East Aegean river-based water management district is located it talks about 32% of the country's territory, 35,000 square kilometers, and a lot of major rivers that actually flow to Turkey and Greece. So this is also very important in regards to transboundary pollution, by the way, with some organic pollutants and pesticides, fertilizers, etc., from agriculture, or some industrial pollutants, of course. Next, please. And as we said, it is managed by this district. East Aegean is managed by the water basin directorates, and the headquarters are in Plovdiv. So this is very convenient for us as well, because we can communicate directly with the directorate in regards to, for instance, some measures or interventions that agricultural producers can use on their land in order to keep the water quality and water quantity. And you can see that a total of 12 administrative districts, 91 municipalities, and settlements, thousands of settlements are located entirely or partially in the boundaries of the East Aegean Basin Directorate. The population of the territory is about 2 million people, which is very significant. It's about 30% of the total population. As I said, this is one of the best and most important agri-food production regions in Bulgaria. Next, please. You can see the water body types that this East Aegean region district is comprising. These are the mountain water bodies. As you see, there are a lot of them because there are mountainous areas in this region. Semi-mountains, large lowland rivers, etc., etc. But see the paragraph which is in red, and with which we are very proud, by the way. Protected areas in the East Aegean River Basin District occupy 2.11% of the territory. 2 national and 6 nature parks are located in this territory. 133 natural landmarks, 13 maintained nature reserves, 208 protected territories, and 38 protected areas for bird protection, and 64 areas for habitat protection under the Natura 2000 network, fall within the territory of this river, which is very important. And as I said in the very beginning, the water management is very straight related and dependent from the water management. So we are placing also very big importance and focus on biodiversity management. Next, please. Significant water management issues. There are 4 or 5 that we have chosen. We have selected some of them just to give you examples. About the surface water, this is the nutrient pollution. Why we're not talking only about nitrate pollution? Because we have basically pollution with nitrates and phosphates, the 2 nutrients that are used basically by agriculture. As I said, agriculture production is one of the major in the area. So naturally, if there is excessive use of fertilizers, then you can see such pollution. Also, we have observed, and particularly Ekaterina was involved in several years monitoring of such pollution with nitrates and phosphates. So we have our Department of Agroecology at Agriculture University is already for probably 30 years involved in monitoring and suggesting measures or interventions to farmers around water bodies in order to stop or reduce this pollution with nutrients. Nutrient emission and pollutions are, according to monitoring data for the period of 15-20, present by nitrogen and phosphorus in 199 surface water bodies, which is 64% of all surface water bodies. 22 water bodies in the Arda River Basin, 46 in Tunja, and 131 in Maritsa. And as I said, all of them are continuing to flow into Greece and Turkey. So we can imagine that if we don't apply nature-based solutions in areas in Bulgaria, it will have impact and affect also the transboundary pollution to Greece and Turkey, by the way. Next, please. According to this dynamic model that I have shown just a few minutes ago, we have drivers, the present status, pressure, and impacts in regards to nutrient pollution from agriculture. Basically, it is coming from artificial and organic fertilizers, natural fertilizers. Over the last decade, the harvested production in Bulgaria has increased by over 50%, while meat production has increased also by 48%. And naturally, it implies much more intensive approach to agriculture practices, which results in increased environmental pressure. And basically, the major problem are leakage on the surface water of N2O, the nitrogen oxide, which is one of the green gases that is destroying the atmosphere, together with methane and CO2, but also the nitrates that could be also going to the underground waters and polluting the land and water reserves. Next, please. Which responses, I'm just very briefly going through all these slides because we don't have too much time, but which responses we can observe, and we already apply in the Plovdiv region and this East Aegean region in Bulgaria. Limitation of fertilizer use in nutrient vulnerable zones. We call them nutrient vulnerable zones. They are designated already for, I don't know, 20 years ago. We started to designate these zones before Bulgaria entered the European Union. It was a prerequisite to enter the European Union because in these zones, the farmers are forbidden to apply mineral fertilizers and excessive organic fertilizers. Compliance with the requirements for good agricultural, farming, and environmental practices. Since 2013, Bulgarian farmers are strictly required to comply with the so-called cross-compliance regulation of the European Union, not to mention the new strategic plan for development of agriculture and rural development in Bulgaria, where Agriculture University was heavily involved in the 3 of the strategic goals related to protection of environment caused by agriculture. So we designed very good measures that you can see now shortly you'll see them in the presentation, including the buffer strips and riparian strips. Then implementation of the program of measures to reduce and prevent nitrate pollution from agriculture sources. Then implementation of monitoring program under the nitrate directive for surface and groundwater. It is compulsory. Our farmers are in this programming period since last year. Our farmers are required to present evidences to the paying agency in order to receive subsidies of how much they apply every year of nitrogen and phosphorus fertilizers, and whether they comply with the requirements of not more than 17 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare per year. So they have to present evidences, otherwise they will not be paid subsidies. So we have to be clear on that. Next, please. I'll just read. This is also a big problem in Bulgaria. The nutrient pollution from urban and industrial wastewater. It is coming basically from wastewater purification stations, and because of absence of such stations everywhere in Bulgaria. But the main source of surface water pollution on the territory of East Aegean region are urban wastewater sewage systems. They are responsible for about 90% of the total nitrogen and phosphorus load, as well as related organic pollution. And indicators that we are measuring are actually showing this picture. The percentage varies in the different river basins depending on the degree of industrial sector development, food industry, chemical industry, etc. Fish farming also manifests as a point source of pressure in case of intensive fish breeding in artificially created fall basins, fish ponds. Intensive aquaculture in fish ponds is a well-developed economic activity in our region. So this is also one of the sources for pollution. Next, please. Now, in regards to urban and industrial sources of pollution, we have drivers, of course, urbanization and industry. The status is elevated concentration of nutrients in surface waters, which intensifies eutrophication of surface waters, lack of oxygen, of course, for fish and for other organisms, and the pressure is from discharge of partially treated or untreated wastewater from settlements in industrial plants, which exceeds adding excessive loads of nutrients to surface water bodies. Next, please. How we approach this problem. Responses: urban wastewater collection and treatment, construction of or completion of urban sewage networks. It is increasing and increasing, fortunately. And development of wastewater collection treatment system for smaller settlements, refurbishment and improvement of industrial wastewater treatment plants, and other. Also, by the way, I think it is not clear, not here. This is the composting of the solid waste that is coming from this wastewater in order to decrease for 3 or 4 years composting to decrease if there are eventually certain amount of heavy metals, and then composting them to fertilizers that are used by farmers as well. Next, please. Organic pollution. Based on analysis of issued permit, it can be stated that about 79% of the permitted what was this indicator? I forgot. BOD. Or this originate from municipal wastewater. What are the drivers? Industry, urbanization, and agriculture. The pressure is about urban wastewater management. And the next slide is about how we respond to that. And in this slide, also in the next slides, you can see what we're using. Also, we try to promote this in the strategic plan, the strategic development of agriculture. This is related with Common Agriculture Policy. Collection and treatment of domestic and industrial water, refurbishment of industrial wastewater plants, but also, probably it is not here, but on the picture it is shown that we're using the buffer strips and filter strips between fields, agricultural fields, but also between the fields and the river basins. And it is forbidden to destroy them. On the contrary, we are giving subsidies to farmers. In the previous period, it was, by memory, measure number 10, which was agroecology and climate, and the government and the EU were giving subsidies in this period as well. This new programming period to farmers, giving subsidies to farmers in order to keep and maintain these natural strips of vegetation, border vegetation between agricultural land and between agricultural land and the river basins. We call them buffer strips or green strips, and they are known in the European Union as well as all over the world. So we are trying to promote this and trying to stimulate farmers to keep them. Next one. Groundwater. You will see the pressure on groundwater quality. It is nitrates from point or diffuse pollution sources, including geological origins. Among causes are the lack of sewage systems. I told you that they are not everywhere, even the biggest impact in the smaller settlements, and appropriate facilities for wastewater treatment, improper manure use and storage and composting, excessive use of fertilizers, cultivation, especially fallow land, precipitation, lack of precipitation, etc. Next one. And responses, you can see more and more of them. These are the buffer strips close to the rivers. There are very strict, already for a second programming period, very strict requirements to the farmers. Otherwise, they won't receive subsidies if they don't comply with this compulsory let's say, keeping or maintaining of these buffer strips, because otherwise you can't stop the flow of potentially pesticides and pollutants in this, even in the small rivers and tributaries, etc., etc. Promoting the use of good agricultural practices. This is even compulsory. This is not about promotion, but these are compulsory good agricultural practices. Expansion of groundwater protection zones and additional modeling to increase the level of understanding of groundwater issues. Yes. And I can tell you that more and more Bulgarian farmers now are actually orienting to so-called conservation farming and regenerative farming, where we have very small depth of land cultivation, not more than, I don't know, 5 centimeters or something, in order to stop or reduce erosion, because this erosion is leading to flowing of this excessive flowing of the water, and the water is ending up in the rivers and dams. Next one. Climate change. This is one of the factors, of course, not only pollution, but the climate changes that we are observing is an issue related to water management, which is addressed in 2 aspects: floods and droughts. Floods, in regards to floods, the first step of the process is designation of areas of potential significant flood risk. In the last, let's say, 10 years, there were many events of flooding in this East Aegean river basin in 385 locations, and 55 flood events have been classified as significant, and 41 were identified. And I have to tell you that in many of these events, another problem that is addressed by the UN, by the nature-based solutions proposed by UN, are deforestation. Deforestation is addressing afforestation, you know, I mean, or vice versa. I mean, cutting of the trees around villages, and when you cut trees around villages, because villages are actually close to the river basins, when you cut the trees when you deforestate, if I'm not wrong with the term deforestation, when you cut the trees, the water is just flowing straight and it's going through the villages, and then you have very huge impact of this flooding of villages, social impact, economic impact, pollution with agricultural pollutants, and everything related to that. So we had a number of such events in the last 20 years, if I may say. So this is a big problem in Bulgaria, and we have to actually approach this problem with introducing trees and not cutting them. This is one of the problems that we have to approach. Next one. And you can see the responses, coordination between flood risk management plans and the river basin management plans, data, information, assessment results and measures, and increasing the share of natural water retention, as I said just a few seconds ago, which contributes to both reducing flood risk and improving ecosystem status and achieving the management plan objectives: restoration of floodplains, wetlands, restoration of natural state of riverbeds, because the riverbeds are also impacted, and providing a justification for exceptions, the Article 4.7 of the Water Framework Directive, for the planned measures that lead to deterioration of surface water bodies due to physical hydrometeorological modification. This is when certain companies are allowed to extract gravel from the water basins, and this is, especially in the nature protected areas, this is absolutely forbidden, and it should be penalized at the moment a municipality see that it is happening. In Bulgaria, we have, as I said, 28 districts or regions and 264 municipalities. So you can imagine how difficult it is to control and provide all these promotion measures to all this number of this large number of municipalities. Next one, please. The drought between September 2019 and autumn of 2020, some reserves of the territory used for potable water supply had water quantities below 50%. So you can see how drastical and so how critical is the drought in Bulgaria when it happens. We can't supply, if it drops down below 50%, we can't supply this water to purification stations for potable water, but also it is impacting heavily the biodiversity. Next one. And you can see the situation, for instance, in March 21 and in July 21, and you see drastic change in the soil drought index. It is increasing because it is getting hotter and hotter because of the climate change. What responses we can use to the drought to reduce water losses, especially used by farmers? They should be optimized. Improve water efficiency, including ensuring alternative water sources in regards to potable water supply and irrigation sector. Improve water management through better control over water use and information on available water resources and converging it into a single information system. We do have existing monitoring system with 461 points, if I'm not wrong, but still, the optimization of this water monitoring system is necessary to provide better data, not only to Bulgaria, but also to the European Commission. Collection and dissemination of information of good practices and technologies for saving water in all economic sectors, and its reuse. I have to tell you that food processing factories, which are very famous in our south region, all of them, probably, but let's say 95% of them are required by law to have their own single water purification stations in each of these food processing plants. So, which is good, because after that the water is actually joining big rivers or dams or whatever. So the government is trying to make sure that the water that is going out of these food processing plants, factories, is with good quality. And then improve the management of complex and significant dams and control over water use and land use management and promotion of growing crops in drought vulnerable areas. We have number of scientific programs. The last one is called Smart Crop Farming, that is already for 4 years, coordinated by Agriculture University of Plovdiv, and we're trying together with 25 or 26 research institutes of Agricultural Academy of Bulgaria to provide farmers with crops and varieties that are resistant to drought, so that they don't need so much irrigation. And we are working with Italy, by the way, on that, with University of Bologna, 2 projects, Scope and Ekaterina, if I'm not wrong, that are using drought-resistant and dry-resistant new crops like Carinata, Camelina, and Carinata. We're working together with University of Bologna on that to provide farmers with new solutions. Next one. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope that it was interesting to you, but at least you can see what problems we have in Bulgaria in regards to water management. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vladislav, for providing such a structured overview of the challenges and also responses that you are adapting right now. I think this presentation is also quite symbolic in light of the World Day to combat desertification and drought, which was in the beginning of this week. Yes. And I would like to open the floor to the audience if you have some comments, questions, suggestions to Vladislav, you can just raise your hand or leave your comments in the section with the comments so I can read it out of loud for you as you prefer. No comments? Maybe like the model. Okay, Ariana, please.
Yes, it's just a simple question. So I understand that you are very much involved with the water management in your region and your research group and in the at also national level. So, but you gave us an overview of water uses in different sectors. So, is there like what are you mostly working on, and if you also have tested nature-based solution for you mentioned these buffer strips, or if you have other projects of that kind.
Personally, by the way, probably Katya and Tanya are online, my colleagues. They can also share their opinion, but personally, I have to tell you that we have been involved myself back in 2011, 2010, 2011 in in the designing of the agricultural measures for the new Natura 2000, and it was the new Natura 2000 framework was adopted in 2015, and we have been involved in designing these measures for farmers, especially in regards to management of natural meadows and pasture land around water reserves and water bodies. How farmers, what are the permitted instruments and practices they can use, especially in meadows and habitats where protected birds and protected animals are actually residing and sustaining. So we have been designing such measures to guide farmers what kind of practices, for instance, how to mow them during which periods of the year, how to maintain the existing trees in the water basin on the left and right side and along the water basin. Also the buffer strips, by the way, the length of the buffer strips, because I remember in 2019 when I went to a workshop in the Ministry of Agriculture, And I started to explain, by the way, what is the purpose and what is the usefulness of the buffer strips, and how large should be these buffer strips alongside the riverbeds and the tributaries, because from one hand, we shouldn't, how to say, prevent farmers to do their farming. But from another hand, I told you that Bulgaria is, if you see the relief of Bulgaria, the map of Bulgaria, we have lowland areas, then we have semi-mountain areas and mountain areas. So you can imagine that if you have agricultural fields in the semi-mountain areas, the slope of these areas is increasing. It is, of course, not the same as the lowland areas. So we have to introduce larger, by width, larger buffer strips in order to catch the flowing waters that are going from the semi-mountain areas to the and catchments to the river basin. So our work was extensively involved with Katya to advise the government, because the strategic plans for development of agriculture should be actually tuned by several ministries. First of all, it is written by Ministry of Agriculture and Food, but then it should be tuned with the Ministry of Environment and Waters. That's the name of the other ministry, Ministry of Environment. So you can imagine how Bulgarian government is putting a lot of focus on waters, because this is a strategic resource for our country. On the river base, on the regional level, as I said, we were advising municipalities, several municipalities that are, I don't know, like 25, 30 kilometers from here, in Asenovgrad, in other small municipalities, but also on the north we have Brezovo, Rakovsky, and Ariana, to tell you honestly, the most effective and most useful thing in regards to how we can make an impact is to work with municipalities, because municipalities are actually responsible for designing. First of all, the municipality management, they have daily contacts with all the producers, for instance, agricultural producers or industrial factories that are working on their territory. This is number one. They have daily contact. They know their people. So they know how they can influence their decisions. So first of all, the most productive is to work with municipalities. And the second, as Katya is doing, she is working with the Water Basin Directorate, which is responsible for the management of the monitoring and management of the waters at this East Aegean river basin, and Plovdiv region is inside this river basin. So both on the political and decision-making level and local level. So this combination is probably the best. Okay.
Thank you, Vladislav. There is another question from Lisa Blix, please.
Yes. Thank you very much for an interesting presentation. I would like to ask, how do you work with the farmers to make them adopt nature-based solutions? Do you work with the information and education and advisory services, or do you also have economic incentives, or how do you work?
It's a very important question, by the way, because we are agricultural specialists, I mean, by education and by our specialization in agriculture university. Our first priority is to work with farmers. I told you the figures. In 2016, there were 163,000 registered farmers. Last year in 23, according to the last census, there were 73,000 farmers. So this is, yesterday I was trying to explain to another presentation. This is a tendency that is occurring in the whole Europe. I mean, this is a land consolidation, less farmers. The land is staying the same, but we have less farmers. Unfortunately, aging farmers, young farmers are getting out. Probably you know that in the strategic plans, in the CAP, Common Agricultural Policies, there is a measure already for a third term, if I'm not wrong, related to stimulate young farmers. And we are, as a university, we are working with the young farmers through our Aegean system. Our Aegean system, just to explain it, this is a state system within the National Agricultural Advisory Service. The National Agricultural Advisory Service, which is financed by the Ministry of Agriculture and Food, has 28 district or regional agricultural advisory services. And they're especially focused to work with farmers in regards to consultancy, especially for climate changes and environmental protection, measures and interventions that are related to that. And I can give you an example. The three measures, if you are common, if you know the CAP and the previous period 2014-2020, there were three measures in the rural development plans. One of them was to stimulate the young farmers. The second one, measure number 10, which was agroecology and climate, and the measure number 11, which was organic farming. I'll give you an example. Only for these three measures, the National Agricultural Advisory Services was giving advices through the regional advisory services, free of charge advices to farmers. So each farmer had this possibility to go to the regional advisory. So it says, okay, I'm going to file an application to the paying agency to pay me subsidies because I would like to make some of these measures like buffer strips or mosaic trees or dedication of some land for not for agricultural purposes, set aside land, or management of the buffer strips, or whatever measures related to agroecology or environment, or making this grassing of the land of the interrows between when you have horticulture orchards, then you grass the land, mulching and grassing the land, but not cultivating the land, which is also a very good measure because, for instance, in Bulgaria we have extensive land with vineyards, and believe me, this measure is especially orchards, fruit orchards, and vineyard. It is especially embraced by farmers because they see that first of all, this is easy. You can just make in the beginning of the year. You can plow in a very low depth, like 3 or 4 centimeters, and then after that you just mow this land. Then you can see that when in this between rows, if you leave them like without any cultivation, then the bees and the birds are coming back to this, and this is good for pollination. So, I mean, you have to convince the farmers to undertake these measures. I can give you also other figures. In the beginning of 2014, the previous period, the set-aside fallow land was taken by 48 of the farmers. In the beginning, of 48% of the farmers, they choose fallow land instead of all other environmental measures. In 2019, it was reversed. About 60% of the farmers opted for any other measures, and the fallow land dropped to 2%. So the farmers, as you know, are learning and listening by example. They have to see the usefulness of these measures. So what we do with my colleagues is to go there in this municipality and train them why this is important. And I have to say that we're doing already this, we're doing for 20 years or something like that, more than 20 years.
Okay, thank you, Vladislav. Since we are running a bit of time, if there are no other comments or questions, I would just maybe conclude the webinar by mentioning the next meetings within the Arcadia project. So the next webinar will take place on July 18th, where Gabriela from ADRC from Romania will present their experience in nature-based solutions. And then we will have a progress meeting on July 4th. Soon we will send you agenda and also the invitation with more details. And also, I would like to mention that currently we are working together with Arter on a document, which is basically an Excel sheet, which will provide you a sort of overview of all the activities which are requested from the technical partners. So to help you to keep track of all of the activities and deadlines. So if there are no other, Gloria, Ariane, if you would like to add something on that, or that's fine. Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for joining the webinar, and thank you, Vladislav, for volunteering and presenting instead of Ekaterina.
Ekaterina is here. She will say you goodbye.
Hi.
Okay.
Katya, Vladislav. Thank you.
All right. See you
Bye-bye.
next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anna.
Bye.
Thank you.